Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spock Connection, and today we'll be catching up on months 0 and 1 of Marvel's current line-wide event, King in Black. You might be asking yourself, month 0? What the hell is that? Well, I'm referring to Symbiote Spider-Man #1, or Symbiote Spider-Man: The King in Black #1 as being month 0, as it did come out in November, whereas the rest of the King in Black tie-ins started coming out in December, and basically just so that they didn't have to double up on that one, because it's 5 issues long. King in Black is 5 issues long, being released over 4 months. Blah blah blah, yada yada yada. You get the idea. Anyway, however, we will be looking at this in as close to chronological order as possible. So that actually means instead of covering Symbiote Spider-Man King in Black #1 first, we'll actually be covering King in Black Namor 1 and 2 first. So without further ado, let's get started with Namor King in Black #1. So this actually takes place between the present and the past. In the present, Namor is in Atlantis. He knows what's going on in the surface world. He's trying to find ways to help, but he knows a way to help, but it requires him basically dredging up some old Atlantean heroes from when he was a boy, and it flashes back to we get a flashback to back then to kind of explain who these characters are. But yeah, they're superheroes of Atlantis, basically, and we see them save the day. We also see the first meeting between Namor and Attuma. As Atuma's people, and who are a more nomadic Atlantean tribe, actually kind of join forces basically with Atlanteans. So anyway, the group in general, the group is known as the Swift Tide, and a major ceremony is attacked by some Atlantean rebels, and the Swift Tide attack, and Namor, Attuma, and a friend of Namor's join in the fray and actually help out. Basically, kind of sort of befriending the Tide, and kind of even being invited to join them. As issue 2 unfolds, we see Namor and Attuma running with the Tide. His friend named Dorma. She has a fish she rides named Gabriel. But yeah, the Swift Tide are heroes of Atlantis, and they are a bit more brutal than superheroes, but it's the kind of thing where, given how Namor has always been, especially towards the more forgiving habits of many of the heroes of the surface world, it shouldn't be surprising that the heroes of Atlantis were rather brutal. But another group of insurgents basically use a Kraken against the Tide. However, the Tide is able to defeat the Kraken, and some there's some talk about Atlantean mysticism and also the history of the ocean, basically making the Cthulhu mythos part of the Marvel canon. In fact, with the ancient city of Rylea, which is mentioned quite often in Cthulhu stories, is stated to be an actual location in it, and what it basically under the oceans of the Marvel universe, well, Marvel universe Earth. But yeah, the great old ones were deposed, and some things about them may have been some things were forgotten. Some things may have just simply been absconded with. Now, we also learn of a plot involving Baron Wolfgang von Strucker on the surface. I'm not really sure when this is supposed to take place. Strucker already looks kind of old, but as young as Namor looks, it's got to at least be around World War One, if not before World War One. But Strucker's people find something, and so the Tide and Namor and his allies go to get it. But the Tide realizes what it is, so then they basically, send Namor, Dorma, and Attuma away as it's too dangerous for them. And they become the Black Tide. And it seems, from the looks of it, it does kind of seem like the Swift Tide found an artifact relating to Null. And that is where things end for King in Black Namor, which then brings us to Symbiote Spider-Man, the King in Black. So, and yes, I did intend to do this about a week ago. I just got kind of sidetracked with a lot of other stuff, so yeah. So anyway, Symbiote Spider-Man King of Black begins at Ravencroft Institute of the Criminally Insane. Alistair Smythe is met by is woken up by apparently his father. But it's actually a shadow entity. And in fact, the entity had recently been bound to a friend of Smythe's, but the host got it. Basically, Smythe wants to walk again. The entity needs a host. The Watcher is viewing what's going on when he's kidnapped by Kang. Spider-Man rescues the little boy. Then he and Ned Leeds are sent to Ravencroft, and we get the reveal that Kang is the one that kidnapped the Watcher, but Kang is trying to download information from the Watcher about something that's coming. But doing so, the Watcher is basically able to make a feedback loop within the machine, and the ship gets destroyed. Back in Ravencroft, Smythe has let the shadow entity take him over, and he's released a gas throughout the building. And then the strangest thing happens. There's a sudden solar eclipse, and pretty much everyone within the building, except for Smythe, turns some kind of shadow creature, including Ned Leeds. So, And the shadow creature identifies himself as Mr. E, and Spider-Man can touch him, which actually surprises Mr. E to no end. Realizing, oh, well, we're both. Mr. E realizes that Spidey's suit and himself are related. And so Spidey tries to punch him again, notice he can't, then he just kind of says, hey, well, I wasn't really thinking about it before, so that actually kind of does the trick. Then the Black Knight shows up. But stabs Mr. E with the ebony blade. But Mr. E manages to escape. In space, Kang is rescued by a most unlikely rescuer, Rocket. Yes, Rocket Raccoon, who will later be a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, one to keep in mind about the Symbiote Spider-Man miniseries is these all take place in the past, back during the Black Costume Saga. So, real time, figure the events take place around mid to late, probably about the late 80s, maybe the mid 80s. The latter portion of the mid 80s, early portion of the late 80s. You get the idea. So, real time, comic time, about 5 or 6 years ago. So, Wizard Merlin appears to Spider-Man and Black Knight. Tells Black Knight to go back to the Avengers Mansion. At the Bugle, J. Jonah Jameson just fired one of their science experts, Neil deGrasse Tyson. No, really. Robbie asks if the exchange we get is Jameson saying, "Damn it, Tyson! You're supposed to be my science editor. How can you not know why there's an eclipse? Screw it, you're fired. Get out of my office." Robbie comes in and says, "Did you just fire Neil?" To which Jameson says, "He was useless. He was useless. Plus, I never trusted him. What kind of middle name is deGrasse anyway?" So yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson, former science editor for the Daily Bugle. But Ned, possessed by one of the shadow entities like Mr. E, pops up, planning to go after Jameson. Which kind of gets an early start on the whole symbiote-related characters going after J. Jonah Jameson. But he breaks into the Bugle. Betty Brant, his fiancée, recognizes him by his voice. And so Shadow Ned goes after Jameson. Spidey saves the day, busting through a skylight, which Jameson claims he's going to bill Spider-Man for. Merlin gives Black Knight a rundown of what's going on and explains that the Ebony Blade is probably one of the few things that could probably hurt Null. But Null is explained as being a creature of immense power, poses a threat to all of space and time. He is, at the moment, he's contained, but one day that containment will end, and he will roam free, leaving destruction in his wake. And so Merlin asks for the Ebony Blade, but And Black Knight's supposed to hand it to him, but then he stops and decides to test Merlin, asking what his name is. Turns out it's Mr. E, and he runs Black Knight through with the ebony blade and takes the blade for himself. Spidey and Shadow Ned fight in the printing presses of the Bugle, with the shadow entity escaping, leaving an unconscious Ned on the presses. So Spidey pulls Ned off. Back at Avengers Mansion, Kang and Rocket Raccoon go to rescue, go to get the ebony blade, and find a bleeding out Black Knight. And there appears to be a shadow entity creeping up on them. And Rocket suggests that they get Black Knight out of the mansion before things get worse. And that's where we left off, leading up to this week's Symbiote Spider-Man King in Black #3, which, well, covered on the roundup, but we'll cover again at the end of when going over this month's King in Black books. It also brings us to King in Black #1. So the short catch up. Null is the god of the symbiotes. Carnage woke him up, and Null said, "Hey, Earth seems like a fun place to go. And yeah, I'm just gonna wipe out a whole ton of planets along the way." Which he did. So the issue begins with the Avengers all being an Avengers alert. Basically, hey, everyone's gonna evacuate. Null and his forces have arrived in orbit around the planet. Eddie gets his son Dylan to a safe house. The Avengers have set up the remains of the Kree-Skrull fleet from Empire as a minefield around the planet. And so Null's symbiote dragons hit it. Mines go explodey. And they don't do a lick of good. But basically, symbiote goo is raining down on New York. Various heroes are trying to evacuate people and protect them from the goop. But yeah, the X-Men show up. Venom basically finds the spire, goes back to Carnage's spire from when he just woke up Null, basically figuring if maybe he can hijack the hive mind, but it doesn't work. And it works, but basically Eddie Brock gets some really bad news. Null took on his way to Earth. Null took on the Celestials and won, and brought them here covered in, basically nullified, covered in symbiote goo. In fact, riding in one of them. Cap talks some shit to Null before the Sentry shows up. Sentry basically intends to fly Null into space and, do what he did to Carnage. Rip him in half. Yeah, Null tears him open. And it would seem possibly even absorbs the power of the Void. And based on the ground, things are just getting worse. And Null wraps the planet in a symbiote encasing. Storm is a high priority target because lightning actually affects Null. Venom once again accesses the hive mind, gets basically kind of saying, "Here I am, come get me," and Null does just that. But it turns out it's not Eddie that Null's looking for, but rather Dylan, Eddie's son. And so he pulls the symbiote off of Eddie and drops Eddie off the Empire State Building. Which brings us to, Venom number 31. Which basically deals with Eddie's fall and landing. But we also get Rex Strickland, a flashback to Rex Strickland looking back on Eddie and his involvement with the symbiotes and Null, and yeah. But yeah. So Eddie falls, and the Venom symbiote is being kept by Null. Strickland actually narrates a lot of the issue, talking about who Eddie Brock is. But things aren't going well out there. Dylan tries to find out what's going on, but the symbiote he's connected to throw him out, and he actually sees Null basically kick his dad's ass on TV. Oh, Eddie takes the painful way down, hitting sides of a few buildings along the way before landing smack dab on a car. Yeah. It's not a good day to be Eddie Brock. That brings us to... Now, going on around the same time is Black Cat number 1. Well, before and around the same time. So, Black Cat is looking to swipe some of the... basic black money that S.H.I.E.L.D. had stashed in various locations to fund her criminal enterprises. But she's not trying to... Basically, she's just following someone else who knows where it is, the idea being that her and her crew will then steal their score. Honor among thieves, right? Right? Yeah. No, yeah. Her crew is using the Spider-Mobile. But in the middle of everything, Null invades, and so, yeah. Black Cat kind of gets caught up in everything. Watches as everything basically goes to hell. And Cap ends up telling her, hey, I know you're a thief, but deep down you are a good person, and right now we actually kind of need a thief. Save Doctor Strange from Null. So they bust into Alchemax. And meet up with Dr. Steve, who's probably one of the people who could be considered an expert on Earth when it comes to symbiotes. So yeah, that's the plan. Steal Doctor Strange from Null. And then we've got King in Black #2, which kind of picks up right where Venom #31 left off, with Eddie Brock hitting the car. Spider-Man picks him up. But yeah, Cap, Cyclops, The Thing, Miss Marvel, Storm, some of the others are now possessed by Null's version of symbiote goo. Human Torch manages to clear them away because, well, fire and symbiotes don't really react well. Does a Nova Blast, to, kind of sacrificial Nova Blast. At 4 Yancey Street, the 4 Yancey Street is where Spider-Man takes Eddie. Jane Foster, Valkyrie, is there. But Spidey goes to talk to Dylan. And, Dylan asks, is my dad dead? And Spidey says, he wasn't when I left him. In the lab, you've got Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman, Black Panther, Blade. Blade is having a conference call with Magneto and Professor X. We're just like, we're not going to open up the gates of Krakoa to everyone, because, well, then the symbiotes will come through, and, well, that's that. Iron Man's also there. Namor comes in. And Tony Stark has a plan. Explaining that everyone's going to hate it, especially Namor. It's insane. And he's going to need a dragon. He goes on to explain that they need Eddie Brock alive. He's the only one that can break into the hive and get close enough to Null to shut him down. The only thing that can save him now is a symbiote. So, Tony's going to get them one. Dylan follows, but... Peter follows, but, why one of the dragons? Dylan explains that the dragons are stronger. And that if Iron Man can control one, it could be bonded to Eddie. Then also you got the whole thing where Namor has to go and wake up the Black Tide. Blade's got to go talk to Dracula, and Tony also has to talk to Mayor Fisk, who has shown up at the bar with no name to basically say, hey, who wants to make some money? So Iron Man flies into one of the dragons, shoots up with some extremis, and brings it back to 4 Yankee Street, tries to bond it to Eddie. Dylan ends up destroying the symbiote, and upon doing so, Eddie dies. The strain of everything kills Eddie. And that's where the issue ends. Next, we've got the Iron Man Doctor Doom one-shot, which seems to take place about right after King in Black #2, as for reasons we'll see here in a second. We'll begin with a flashback to Tony Stark's childhood. Dad bought him a building for Christmas one year. Real estate, flipped it when he was 9. But when Doom shows up in New York in the present and finds Iron Man, he's brooding about the fact that he killed Eddie Brock. He screwed up, and Eddie Brock's dead because of it. And so Doom asks, if Tony would mourn him the same way. Because, hey, there's still a lot of people who think of Venom as a villain. Most view Doom as a villain. And Tony, well, it depends. Did I kill you? Was I trying to save you? And, well, Doom's just like, oh, isn't that what all you were trying to do when you come after me? Try to save me? Anyway, basically, Santa Claus shows up with some robot reindeer. Oh, and he's, possessed by Null. So, Iron Man and Doom team up to take him down. They, according to the operating system of the armor, it's not actually Iron Man, obvious, or it's not actually Santa Claus. It's a guy that runs a Christmas business down in Paramus. But he does seem to, he refers to as he leaves, he refers to both Iron Man and Doom by their real names. Now, of course, neither one has a secret identity, but still, he makes some pretty on the money pronouncements. Doom kind of wants to combine the symbiote extremis with his own tech, but Tony's like, yeah, no. And after Iron Man flies off, Doom asks himself if maybe Santa Claus is actually a Sorcerer Supreme. Which brings us to the Union, number 1. Now, funny thing with the Union, it was initially supposed to be a tie-in to Empire. The Union is supposed to be a UK super team that includes Union Jack. So they're doing a training exercise. We also we get a little cartoon with one of the members. Britannia. But it turns out that the Union consists of 4 members: Britannia, Snakes, the Choir, and Kelpie. But they're doing a training exercise with Union Jack. And it's being televised. And the rest of the members are kind of playing to win, not just... Or seem to be playing for keeps. But it's a capture the flag game. Afterwards, some of the military personnel present try to talk with the members of the Union, but they're not even kind about it. So we learn that Choir has sonic powers. Kelpie has water control powers, and then there's simply Snakes. We don't really get a good idea of what Snakes can do. So yeah. Then one of Null's dragons attacks. Britannia fights the thing, and manages to kill it, but in the process gets run through by its tail. She dies in Union Jack's arms, but the various soldiers have all been possessed by the goo from the symbiote dragon. And so, Union Jack picks up Britannia's sword and leads the Union into battle. The second issue should be out soon-ish. And Next up, we've got the King in Black Immortal Hulk one-shot, which I guess kind of makes sense because we did get an Immortal Hulk one-shot from Absolute Carnage. It's a silent issue, as apparently this does take place at this is happening around Christmas. The Immortal Hulk spies a Christmas shopper trying to make it home during the attack. Notes that, however, frightens them and notes that when the person ran off, they dropped a present. So he goes to return it. But, yeah, the shopper's been shouted down on by one of Null's symbiote drones. So, using a lamppost, Immortal Hulk manages to fry it. Cops show up, shoot at Immortal Hulk, but he jumps off. Of course, some of the goo left from the symbiote drone gets the cops. And then Immortal Hulk goes to an old Aunt Lo's toy store. Has a flashback, sees one of the toys and has a flashback to to Bruce Banner's childhood, where said toy was destroyed by his father. And then Hulk turns back into Bruce. But the possessed cops are now there. So, Banner, with a bloody foot, leads the cops on a merry chase through the mall. And then uses Sonics to take down the... turns out the possession is fatal, so the cops were already dead. But first Sonics, then fire to take down the symbiote. Then he goes and hangs out in the toy store. Hulks out, goes to the toy store. But it's an entirely silent issue, and it's actually really a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Then we got Spider-Woman number 7. So this is kind of one of the downsides of events, is that sometimes you'll get a book who has a running story and maybe sales are kind of flagging on the book, so editorial says, hey, do what you can to, you think you can come up with a story, an issue or two for the big crossover thingy? It's like, maybe, I guess. So, Spider-Woman and various other heroes, Hawkeye, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Night Nurse, Miss Marvel, are fighting, the forces of Null. But the other heroes become a little concerned with how violent Spider-Woman is, or has become. Explain that they're trying to keep in mind that she's been taking a serum that has been kind of wreaking havoc on her emotions of late. So, but this culminates in them getting her into Night Nurse's clinic, and then they do manage to take her down, and they put her in basically Night Nurse's Hulk cage. Yeah, she has a Hulk cage. And they were locked in it when they leave. And after they leave, however, a woman who's become quite the thorn in Spider-Woman's side of late, Octavia Vermis, shows up. Octavia wants to have a chat. Well, Octavia wants Spider-Woman's help. But that will be explored. That's explored in Spider-Woman number 8. Alright, that's it for months 0 and 1 of King in Black. We'll have to try and make sure and get the month 2 King in Black catch up out before the beginning of next month's King in Black books start coming out. But that's all for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.